Once there was a simple man who was so ignorant that he couldn't even read the prayer book. All he knew were the letters of the Aleph Bet. And so he would sit alone in a corner of the synagogue and quietly recite each letter of the Aleph Bet one by one with great concentration. Then he would add, Ribono Shel Olam, here are my letters. That's all I know. Please take them and you put them in the right order for me, so that I too can bless you and glorify your name. When the Baal Shem Tov heard of this, he said, surely those simple letters will go straight to heaven quicker than any prayer. Such is the power of the most humble of men to raise up his spirit in the service of his Creator. At the turn of the 20th century, the Jewish world found itself once again at a crossroads of its history, witnessing on the one hand pogroms, persecution, and the most corroding assimilation, and on the other, the exhilaration of national revival. It was the great scholar and sage of those times, Harav Avraham Yitzchak Kook, who saw in the advent of political Zionism a vital means to the realization of the ancient dream of returning to Eretz Israel. For it was here, and only here, that, in fulfillment of the prophecies of old, the Jewish people could achieve its true religious, social, and national destiny. Yet there were many for whom the road to survival led westward, to the New World, where survival would also mean the secular pursuit of material success, safety, and comfort, surrendering to the growing threat of assimilation, the silent holocaust of our times. But the rebirth of the Jewish state in its own land bore testimony to the indestructible courage of its people. A people whose faith and whose heritage had been guarantees of endurance through the long, dark centuries of exile. And now, more than ever, it is for every generation and every individual to seek for that which will answer his need. For many of our youth, this has meant a journey of rediscovery, a coming home to a motivated way of life. A way of life that combines an awareness and understanding of Jewish observance, culture, and tradition, with a responsibility towards the community of which they are part. One particular young man, born of non-observant parents and brought up in a totally secular kibbutz, has found his own way home. An officer in the elite paratroop corps at the time of the Yom Kippur War, Dov Bigun was a man in search of his destiny. The questions he asked himself, and which he now asks of others, were simple, but basic. I am a Jew. What does that mean? I am an Israeli. What does that mean? What is my contribution to be? To my people? To my country? To my fellow men? The answers, he knew, were not to be found in ignorance, but in knowledge. So Dov Bigun began to study at the world-famous Merkaz Harav Yeshiva in Jerusalem. Inspired by the teachings of Harav Kook, Dov Bigun returned to his roots and became deeply imbued with a fervent love. A love that he is now fully committed to pass on to those who, like once he did, seek to question and test the fundamental essence of our existence. Such is the strength of his faith and the vitality of his message, that the educational branch of the Israel Army encourages groups of young recruits and potential officers to debate with him in an open spirit of inquiry. Perhaps not always to agree, but maybe at least to understand. For his love is a love for God and his Torah, a love for his people and its heritage, and, no less important, a love for our land, the incomparable land of Israel. And so, together with some colleagues from Merkaz Rav, Dov Begun established Machon Meir to satisfy the growing hunger for Jewish faith and knowledge. Today, Machon Meir is the only Zionist yeshiva for Baalei Tshuva, where students from all walks of life and all levels of religious commitment can rediscover their Jewish roots, further their knowledge of Torah in an atmosphere of complete intellectual freedom. And, where necessary for overseas students, study the ancient language of the Bible with the aid of modern techniques.
Well, as far as I know, the best definition of Judaism is the definition made by Rav Kook and adopted by the Torah V'Avodah, the religious Zionist movement. That is, it contains three components: the components of Eretz Yisrael, Am Yisrael, and Torah Yisrael. The people, the land, and the religion. The most important thing is that I believe that studying Torah is something that it can't be done in isolation and separately. It has to be done in connection with the deep appreciation of the land of Israel and the Jewish people. And therefore, if I was looking for a place with not only religious teaching, but also with Zionist background, the only place that I know of in Israel with both a Jewish and a Zionist education is Machon Meir.
There's so many other options to take. There's umpteen yeshivot, but none that have a feeling for Israel and Jews as much as you get here. There's something precious over here.
When I was in Sweden, I don't have any religious background at all. I've been living far away from the Judaism, so I had the opportunity to come back to it here in this yeshiva, and that's good.